What's up, everyone? Welcome back. It's a Wednesday night, which means it's time for Mythic Conversations. We have a very cool show tonight because Mythic Legions All-Star 6 is in hand, and we're going to be cracking these open tonight. It's a Mythic Pizza episode, which saw a comment asking what Mythic Pizza is all about. So I'll talk about that. I'll explain that story and tell that again for anyone who's new. But we're going to have a great evening tonight. I mean, is there anything better than getting in new figures? No. That's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to pop these open. We're great timing because I had nothing planned for this evening. And I don't have a whole lot of time to open up these toys. So win-win, right? I'm going to do that both tonight. I'm going to fill a night of content. And I'm going to get to open some new toys live with all of you. Of course, tonight we are streaming on both the Mythic Customs YouTube channel and on the official Full Horseman channel because this is such an important episode. We got such cool stuff to look at that we wanted to double our pleasure and be on both channels. So what is Mythic Pizza? So interestingly, I'm the one that started this concept or this tradition of Mythic Pizza. And it goes back to before I was working as a member of the studio when I was just one of the super fans who had backed that first Kickstarter. So when that first Kickstarter arrived, as many of you may know, I live in Rhode Island. I don't actually live in Maine. I do live in Rhode Island. It's about 3.5 hours from the New Jersey studio. So I got really lucky, and when that first Kickstarter ran, I had backed for an all-in plus some extras, and I just happened to be in the first wave of packages that went out. Typically, because of how close I am, when they send packages from the studio via FedEx, I get them the next day. So I was amongst the first people to get Mythic Legions 1 in hand. And I actually called in sick to work. I ordered a large pizza and I spent the day just eating pizza and opening up Legions figures. And I mean, the first Mythic Legions wave was 34 figures. So when I say I spent a day opening figures, I genuinely mean I spent a day opening figures. It was such a cool, just not process, but it was just a cool memory of doing that. Like, it's something I will never forget. And I've told that story a number of times of getting a Mythic Pizza. And a number of Legionnaires have kind of adopted that tradition and they do it themselves. So whenever a new wave of Legions arrives, whenever they get, I mean, you can do it with any amount of the wave, but all-ins hit differently, right? Anybody who's ever gotten an all-in, especially if you didn't used to order all-ins and you started, all-ins just hit differently. When you get that in and you open it up, like today when I got mine, I put a little teaser on the Cabal of just the front of the box, just, the cardboard box. I almost wanted to open it up and photograph the inside of the all-in, but I wanted to preserve that for people to experience it for themselves. I don't want to spoil that because it's when you open that up, first off, the way that the factory packs all-ins is, I mean, it's like a game of Tetris, how perfectly they're able to pack these things. So I love when you open that up and you get a glimpse at every single figure in the wave, every single item in the wave packed expertly. You start pulling them out one by one. It's just something really special. So the fact that people have adopted that tradition of Mythic Pizza, I think it's pretty awesome. It's one of the weirder contributions I can say that I've made to the Legions community. But I'm also at a different, not location tonight. So I'm usually right back there. So you can see right over there. That's my workbench. You can see all the Shoguns up there. That's usually where I'm broadcasting from. That's where I work all day. This is the area that I'm in. This is the new house that I have. So this is my collection room, office, workspace. It's everything. This is my space down here. Because I wanted to have more room instead of like setting up a little table next to that. If you look on the Cabal earlier, I posted a photo of kind of the middle of the collection room. And a lot of people asked, oh, where's that table from? It's actually a bar. I'm sitting at a bar right now. I'm standing at a bar right now. This is the bar that was here when I moved in, because this was kind of like, it wasn't a man cave. It was more just like a family space where the previous family would hang out. So they had a bar here. And that's what I'm using right now. That's where I've got everything set up. It's a nice large space, it's a great place to actually broadcast from. You can kind of see behind me, I have a wide variety of items, but you can see these are my non-Legions area. So you can see I've got some Mondo Masters over there, just some random stuff. There's some NECA over there, Nightmare Before Christmas in the corner. Further, there's Mezco over there, but realistically, all of the Legions are on the other side, and I can't even see what I'm doing right now. But this is the rest of the room, and that's really where all the Legions are. And then in the center, I have just a big giant table that's got a whole bunch of stuff on it: Marvel Legends, GI Joe, Classified. A lot of stuff going on. So I will do a collection tour someday. Dub last year when he was at my old house, my old collection room after Legions Con last year, he did a really cool tour. So I'll have to do something that here as well. I'm also hoping one of the things I want to talk about, and I can actually bring it up right now, is one piece of news that we added last week is we added a couple different shows to the calendar. So if you go to sourcehorseman.com/events, you can see our event calendar. We added the next show coming up is the 5 Points Festival Toy Pizza Expo, which is in Beacon, New York. That's a cool one because that's going to be the day after the Infinite Legions reveal. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. So that's going to be a fun show. That's like a very artsy type thing. We're going to be there with a lot of the Glyos creators. But one of the shows that we added is a New England show, and it's this one right here, the Great American Toy Show. So the Great American Toy Show, formerly known as ChrisCon, that's one of the, actually, I think this year that's the only New England show we did. Last year we did one in New Hampshire as well with Dan Larson. But this year, I think this is really, oh no, we did a Connecticut show. Connecticut's like the weird New England state because like part of it feels very New England, like up northern Connecticut. And then when you get southern Connecticut, it feels more like New York. So they're the one I always forget about. But this is in Taunton, Mass. So this is only about 30 minutes from where I live. What I'm actually thinking, the show's on a Saturday. I'm actually thinking of doing a Mythic meetup at my house. I'm not sure if I want to do it the Friday night, which would be the night before ChrisCon, or if I want to do it the Sunday, which is the day after ChrisCon. There's pluses and minuses to both of them. Right now, I'm kind of leaning towards the Friday night, figuring that like some people may be coming into the area for ChrisCon, and that may be better than trying to do it on the Sunday. But I've done Mythic meetups at my previous house in the previous collection room. I think that it'd be a cool thing to do here. So we'll see. That's kind of the plan. But the other thing that I just mentioned is Infinite Legions. So last Friday, we dropped this little teaser here. This is a mashup of the Full Horseman skull logo mashed up with the Faden character from Onel Design and Glyos. So in the true sense of Infinite Legions being a collaborative type experience, this graphic was started by Eric Treadaway. So he actually, sketched this out and kind of sculpted this and then he handed it over to Nate Barch. Nate Barch did all of his part to it. Then it got handed to Matt from Onell Design and Mark Bodette from Onell, and they ended up taking it home and putting up all the finishing touches before bringing it back to Nate to finalize the files and so forth. So once again, all four of them had kind of a hand in this. And I mean, that alone really is exciting. This Infinite Legions line and project has me so excited. Like, just the process of being able to work with Matt and Mark and everybody on this has been a true delight. But I can't say too much about that because I don't want to reveal anything, yet, because the reveal is going to be coming up in a few weeks. So on Friday, June 6th, time is still to be determined, but probably like 8 o'clock. We're going to be doing a live stream right here on the Four Horsemen channel where we are going to be revealing this figure fully. Now, we did a teaser of the Infinite Legions fade-in figure at G-Con last year, but that was just a teaser. It was a bit of a render. It's now come full circle. It's a full figure. It's going to be a really cool presentation. So definitely want to check it out and learn more, not only about the Infinite Legions fade-in figure, but about Infinite Legions itself, because this line that we are working on is one of the things that personally I am most excited for in our current stable of projects. It's definitely something that I think is going to surprise some people this year and hopefully for many years to come. Very cool. That would be 8 p.m., not a.m. No way these guys are waking up at 8 a.m. to do a live stream with me. Okay, let's see. Yeah, we got Trevor in the chat here. Trevor saying, can't wait for people to see this. Very, very cool. Boba Chuck saying, Beacon, New York. Sweet, that's 25 minutes from my house. Yeah, the prototype for Infinite Legions will be on display at that show, along with a small selection of Legions figures and lots of other cool art and stuff. Let's see. Yeah, Cloud, it's definitely going to be an exciting thing to check out. And again, they're not Glyos compatible. You know, the idea behind Infinite Legions is these are projects that are built using the Legions build system. So if you dig Legions, definitely something to check out. And one of the cool things about Infinite Legions is similar to Figure Obscura, where you never really know what you're going to get from release to release. Infinite Legions is going to be like that as well. It's going to be us working with different creators. And, you know, I've seen a lot of people suggesting like, oh, they're going to work with AWOC and Plunderlings. And you guys, people are thinking way too small. And I understand why, because they're thinking that, oh, well, we're working with Matt and Onell Design and longtime friend, Legions Con exhibitor. So they're kind of looking at the floor plan of Legions Con, and they're saying, well, who else are they going to work with? But, you know, a lot of those companies, they're doing their own thing. Like, we want to be like this particular project, Fade-In, even though it already exists as a figure, it's a tiny little figure. It's a very different kind of figure and format than the Legions build system. And that's the whole idea, is us being able to work with creators to bring their ideas to life through the Legions build system. The example I always use is it doesn't matter whether you buy a Star Wars Lego or a Harry Potter Lego or a dump truck Lego. They're all Lego. It uses a certain build system. That is what this is all about. It is using the Legions build system. So even if you're not a fan of Glyos, or you've never gotten into Glyos, or as Bot is saying, not a fan of the space theme, definitely worth checking out, because even if this particular one isn't up your alley, there's going to be a lot of coolness in variety in this particular line. Ooh. Terrence saying, how accurate is the current release schedule? It's pretty accurate. But we'll have to see what happens over the next 90 days. There's always things changing, always things going on. I just made some updates to it today, actually. Okay, so I'm going down in the chat here because I want to get started. Ooh, let's see. Yeah, Cloud. It's interesting because Cloud's saying that she doesn't have like a personal connection to like Fade. And Glios is so interesting because I didn't have a personal connection to them either. I bought my first Glios at Legions Con a few years ago. It was a Biomasters mutant set. And I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun, but I didn't dive into Glios until I hung out with them at PowerCon 2023. I made the very expensive mistake of hanging out with Matt and his crew of Glios makers. We went out to dinner a few times and we were up until like 2 a.m. And they're such cool people that when you meet people who are just so genuinely cool and passionate about what they're doing, you want to support their art. So that was really how it started. Was I wanted to buy some of their stuff just to support what they were doing. And they're super fun, cool toys. Like once I got a handful of them in hand and I started playing around with them, I realized how different they were than anything else in my collection and how much fun they were. So it didn't take long for me to really get hooked on Glios, but it absolutely did start out with the people. And I mean, I know that Curtis has made a chart before about how he buys toys. Like, is it a cool toy? Are they good people? And, you know, if you can get in that quadrant where you're both cool products and cool people, that's like the grail that you're looking for. That's what we strive to be. We strive to be very honest, good people as a company so we can try to get into that quadrant because we know the toys are awesome, right? But Glios is definitely firmly in that quadrant. Okay. Yeah, street date on All-Star 6 is definitely August 16th. So let's talk about what's going on here. What's my favorite toppings on my Mythic Pizza? Curtis, I'll be honest with you, I'm a cheese pizza guy. I really just like a plain cheese pizza. I know that pineapple on pizza is a very divisive topping, but I do like Hawaiian pizza. Typically, however, I will just get a cheese pizza. That's probably my favorite. My daughter's a vegetarian. My wife doesn't eat a lot of meat. So a cheese pizza ends up just like everyone's happy. So that's usually what I get when I order pizza. Let's see. Very cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on with All-Star 6. All-Star 6, the all-ins arrived yesterday. So we have been telling people that, hey, these were on the water. They were on the way. We didn't know how quickly they were going to get there, but these actually went through port really, really fast. So we got them in hand yesterday. And the cool thing, if you saw the video I posted this morning of the shipping team kind of working like crazy, that wasn't even sped up. That's really how fast they work. What happens is when we're pulling stuff, because these are all pre-packed, right? When we're pulling stuff off the truck, I don't do this, when the amazing shipping team and receiving team, when they pull stuff off the truck, they've got to actually pull everything off. So it's not really any extra work to slap labels on everything because there's no differentiation, right? You don't have to pick and pull anything. That's what takes a lot of time. When you've got, I've got 4 Skeleton Raiders and 1 Scally Bone Splitter and 3 Sir Andrews. When you have to pull those pieces, that's what takes a lot of time. You got to find the right box. You got to pack it. You got to protect it. All-ins come fully ready to go. So every single all-in is the same. Slap the label on, get it out. So they're able to literally get hundreds and hundreds of orders out as they're actually coming in. All of that, the work has to be done to pull the stuff off the container. So to label it while it's pretty much coming and then just get it right back out, it's really not a lot more time. I saw some people actually, because we are still shipping items from the in-stock sale. So the in-stock sale we said was going to take 3 to 4 weeks to ship. We're still well within that time frame, and they're still working every single day on those. And I did see some people kind of groaning a little bit that we had shifted gears from doing the in-stock shipping to ship out these. Minor, very, very minor amount of time. Again, they had to stop what they were doing to receive the new stuff anyway. And there, as George said on the afternoon show, there's really nowhere to put it. So getting it all right back out, it ends up just making a lot of sense. Trust me when I tell you that the shipping team at Full Horseman Studios, they have this stuff figured out. We wish we were Amazon and we had robots. Actually, I don't wish we were Amazon. I don't wish we had robots because I love our shipping team and I think they're freaking awesome. But they are not robots. So it does actually take time to get all of these out, but you will not find a harder working crew of people. Cookie and his gang, they're absolutely awesome. So they're busting ass getting this stuff out. They took a little bit of time off to receive a container and get that out. But what that means is these are now arriving. Now, the rest of the All-Star 6 stuff is on the way to us now. So unfortunately, these all-ins, they didn't miss the tariffs, okay? There was that point where tariffs were rising really, really rapidly and steadily. We were able to get the all-ins out at the lower end of that tariff situation. So while we certainly paid a sizable tariff bill on these, it was at least something that we could reasonably absorb as a company because we did not want to have to go back to anybody and ask for more money. That's just not a trigger that we want to pull. Unfortunately, the rest of the All-Star 6 stuff, we just couldn't get it out before the tariffs had risen to 145%. And it wasn't feasible for us to ship. We knew that was such a high number that something had to change, right? This wasn't going to be a permanent solution. And thankfully, the two sides came together and they put, a bit of a pause on the reciprocal tariffs. There's still a tariff that does apply to these, but it's once again, that we as a company, even though we certainly didn't plan for this tariff when we did this pre-order, it's one that we can reasonably weather. We can reasonably, take this in ourselves. So we did get the rest of the All-Star 6 wave on the water. It's at least going from the factory to the port. Once it's at the port, it gets scheduled onto a boat. It's going to be out the way to us any day now. Beginning of July to mid-July, depending how long transit takes and how long it takes in port, is when we are expecting the rest of the singles. So those single cases, that is what we use to fill. If you order an all-in plus extras, or even if you just order different figures, you don't order anything but an all-in, comes out of these cases. They are cases of figures that's what the crew pulls everything to fill your orders. So those are on the way. Those cases are also what we use to give to retailers for their orders, for their wholesale orders, for their customers. So we are expecting the rest of the stuff in early to mid-July. And as soon as it comes in, immediately we will start shipping those to fill the rest of those orders. We've already got a leg up. We've already started fulfillment because we got all the all-ins out. We will also ship that product out to retailers. As you very likely know, if you know Full Horseman Studios, we very much strive to have all the direct pre-orders out first before retailer street date. Recently with Necronominus, that shipping took us a little bit longer than expected. So there was a little crossover where we were still shipping some pre-orders while retailers had hit street date and started fulfilling. It's really the only time I can remember that happening, but definitely try to avoid that. So for this one, street date is going to be August 18th, I believe it is, which is a Monday. At one point, I think I had said 16th, which is actually a Saturday. It's August 18th, which is a Monday. So that's the latest information we have right now, assuming that everything arrives when we expect it to. Definitely a little bit of a wait, kind of a bummer. We really wish we could have gotten all the singles out at the same time as the all-ins. Had we been able to do that, they'd be almost here and we'd be able to fill orders. But crazy times we're living in right now. I've said this before. We're doing the best that we can under these crazy circumstances. The good news is there is a light at the end of the All-Star 6 tunnel. Some people already have them in hand, and a lot more are going to have them soon. So that's what's going on with that. I will tell you this. If tonight's show gets you excited to pick up any extras of these figures, you're going to want to pre-order those from your local retailer. The all-ins that we sold, and I should say this as well, we're the only ones that sell all-ins, right? So if a retailer sells an all-in, meaning one of everything in the item, it doesn't come packed in an all-in box the way ours do. The only actual all-in boxes are direct through Four Horsemen Studio. So if you are ordering an all-in from any retailer, you're just getting one of every item. It's not technically what we consider it's not a pre-packed all-in. That's worth knowing. The all-ins through Four Horsemen Studios were $495. That's what people paid, plus obviously shipping and taxes were applicable. Those same items from like at retail are $700. So it's almost actually more than a $200 savings by going direct. And the reason I'm saying if you don't have yours already pre-ordered, you want to do it now, is once these arrive and we start selling them at shows, they're going to be at retail prices, just like we're doing with Necronominus. So while the Skeleton Raider was $37 during the pre-order, it's going to be $50 when it's on the table at a show. $50 is what retailers are charging for as well. And some of these have already sold out through retailers. So retailers, once they get the order, they don't have access to get any more. Once they're sold out of their allotment that we pre-ordered for them, that's all they have. So if you wait until these arrive and they start filling their orders, there's definitely going to be some you're going to miss out at. So if you haven't pre-ordered already, there are still some retailers that have them available. If you go to sourcehorseman.com/retailers, you'll be able to hopefully pre-order the ones you want. And that's what I've got here. Okay. Awesome. Very cool. Okay, so let's start with the All-Star 6 actual All-Stars figures. And I'm not going to open all these because we've got an hour left and I want to make sure I have enough time. But I did at least want to look at them. So this is the last All-Stars wave that we have planned, at least for this foreseeable future. All-Stars was something we've been doing since the earliest parts of the Mythic Legions line, where it really started as there was so much demand for that first wave, and the studio saw some of these figures that were really going for a lot of money on the secondary market, including some that really just been like dramatically under ordered in that first wave. So they decided to do a small reissue wave of what was 6 figures as part of this Mythic Legions All-Stars. All-Stars 1 is the only All-Stars wave that was selected purely from the studio. Later waves actually involved fan voting, where fans got to vote on the figures that they wanted to see reissued. Later All-Stars waves included some, special editions that the studio selected, reissues of the Trolls, for instance, or just unusual things that got added, like Deltagar the Destroyer and Egalis 2. PowerCon debuts started coming out in All-Stars. And then in All-Stars 5, that was the All-Stars 5+ wave, where we had got to the point where we realized that a wave of largely straight reissues was limiting all the things we wanted to put out there into the line. So All-Stars 5 included a number of brand new figures that were being available for the first time. That continued with All-Star 6. So All-Star 6 was very much a continuation of the Necronominus wave from that previous G-Con, but it did have 4 different All-Stars, including the first ever All-Star alumni in Sir Ignatius. So Sir Ignatius was from the first Mythic Legions wave, Mythic Legions 1.0. This is also one that was reissued in that first All-Stars wave. I said there were a couple figures that were dramatically under-ordered. Sir Ignatius is one of them, largely because of his paint job. Like in those initial photos, he looked like a knight in just white armor. They didn't really capture the pearlescent type paint job on his armor. So when people got him in hand and they saw fan photos, they absolutely went like over the moon for this figure, but it had been ordered in such low numbers. There were very few to go around. So price went right up. This was one of the ones the studio selected, and it's one of the ones that fans voted, or the one that fans fans voted for as an All-Star alumni in All-Stars 6. Now, I have all 4 of these All-Stars figures. This is one I'm super excited about keeping and opening because it actually has a very different color look than the original figure. And we've seen this in other figures as well. The Sir Enoch All-Stars figure from a few years ago is superior to the original Sir Enoch, especially around the like flexible pieces like the waist armor. The color on the waist armor now, they're able somehow to make it so much more vibrant than they were back then. So comparing this figure to the original Sir Ignatius, that's a couple things that I noticed is definitely around the waist area, all of that armor, this color is so much richer. The paint apps are so much crisper than the old one. And even the armor itself, this one actually looks a little less pearlescent than the original and just a little more shiny, like a little more armor-like. I kind of like the pearlescent of the original. It's weird. I like the paint, like crispness of this, but I like the pearlescence of the first one a little bit. But I love the fact that they're actually a little bit different because to me, this gives me something that I feel like is brand new for my collection. So this is one I'm super excited about. Okay. And again, I'm not going to open these. Just there's not a lot new on it. Gorthok the Shadow Orc, just a really cool figure. I have a few of these in my collection, but I love the fact that you can build out a bit of a Shadow Orc army. Comes with 2 different heads. You can certainly display them differently. One of the things that's really cool too is Gorthok is an important named character. He was the Legion of Aether's representative at the Covenant of Shadow. So he does play a role in the story. He does play a role in the book. He commands the Shadow Battalion, which are made up of the Shadow Orc Grunts. So the Shadow Orc Grunt is a figure still available at Store Horseman. That is part of the reinforcements wave. This is the commander of that group. So you get this, you've got the commander. You can certainly get extras to swap the heads on to build out some different Shadow Orcs. You can get some of those Shadow Orc Grunts to further build out your army. Yeah, Curtis. I know Curtis loves his Shadow Orcs. He loves Gorthok. This is a cool figure. This is a hard one to find for a while. This used to be one of my favorite figures to customize as well because the skin tone was so close to black that it worked really well for a lot of dark customs. I did a lot of like dark fae characters with this character. I also love the armor color, just that like bluish. Lot to love about Gorthok here. Bothar Shadowhorn, one of my favorite dwarf figures from that first wave. I know a lot of people recently have been looking for dwarf bodies, kind of trying to figure out a lot of the, I hesitate to say this because I know what I'm backing myself into, but a lot of the dwarf figures recently have sold out. So people that are looking for dwarf bodies, this is going to be one that's going to be hitting that is going to hopefully fill that need for you, at least until that Exiles 2-pack from Rising Suns comes out and you're able to get that whole new array of dwarf parts into your collection. But Bothar, by today's standards, definitely a somewhat basic figure, but I think the simplicity of Bothar is one of his strengths. Just a cool looking evil dwarf. So definitely a cool one there. Curtis actually said unknown one is the Gorthok accessory pack. Dennis Derby was just talking about that the other day about mixing Gorthok parts with unknown one parts. Yeah, those are a great combo right there for sure. You nailed it, Curtis. Last reissue is Clavian, the red skeleton. A lot of skeletons in this wave, so he fits right in. This is one of the more unique skeleton colors in the line. Of course, not the only red skeleton in the line because we do have Pelvicus as well. Pelvicus's bio actually ties it into this character in these magic huge skeletons. So this is definitely a fun one, very different character. One of the original designs from the pre-Kickstarter era when this stuff was planned to be, ironically, a Glyos compatible 4-inch line. Clavian was one of the figures on display at Toy Tokyo for the Toypocalypse show. So cool little piece of history here, and this is just a good one. One head. I mean, these are the older figures that before we started packing just an insane amount of stuff. And ironically, it's like when you get these figures in, if you want kind of a sense of why we moved away from Allstars, open up one of these figures that I've just shown, and then open up Sir Enoch or Thoras and see the difference between those two, between the soft goods, the extra hands, the extra heads, just everything. That's why we've moved away from Allstars, because as cool as it is to reissue stuff, these are not our best products anymore. We've evolved to a different thing. So, but the cool thing is that's where stuff like Legacies of Mythos are going to come in, allowing us to do new versions of some of those old characters. So very cool figures there. A nice array of different figures for Allstars. We got a knight, we've got an orc, we've got a skeleton, we've got a dwarf. So right there, I love the variety. Now, that being said, it is time to look at the newer stuff in the All-Star 6 line. And I'm going to turn this over to you. What figure would you like me to open up first and take a look at? I haven't opened up any of these. These are literally all in package, so I haven't actually gotten my first impressions of any of them. While I've seen the prototypes for, 2+ years now, and I've certainly handled the prototypes, I've mentioned before that playing with, I don't play with the prototypes. They're terrifying to even touch them. I really don't put things through the paces and enjoy them until I get my figures in hand. So this is my first impression as well. And I've got comments like, let's see, Enoch, the Ogre, Thorasis, Belt Packs, Thorasis, Andrew, Enoch, Thorasis, Enoch, Barodac, Enoch. Looks like a lot of variety here, but I'm seeing a lot of Enochs. So he's one of the ones I was genuinely most excited for. I'm going to start with him. This is one of the figures that I happen to know right now is sold out at Big Bad Toy Store. Now, Big Bad Toy Store is, of course, only one of our retailers. We have plenty of them at saucehorseman.com/retailers. But Big Bad Toy Store is certainly our oldest and largest retailer. So them being sold out is certainly a sign of the popularity of this particular figure, which means that if you haven't picked up Sir Enoch, that is definitely one you are going to want to pick up. So one of the things I love about these new packages is back when we did Allstars 1 as well, but back when we did 1.0, you had the figure in the tray and all the accessories, everything was in a little baggie, right, behind the package. All of these are interesting because these now have trays in them like we've been doing with figures recently. So when you open up Sir Enoch, you've got this cool tray of parts behind the figure. Then you've got his soft goods cape, pack of belts, and then you've got Enoch himself. I wanted to pre-open these because I know that this takes time, but I really didn't want to play with any of this stuff beforehand. So if you've gotten the Necronominus wave and you've gotten the Sir Elijah from that wave, this is going to be pretty similar. Elijah and Enoch were designed at the same time. Their names are actually taken from a Bible story called The Story of the Two Witnesses. So their names go together just like the characters were meant to go together. So it's going to be very, very similar in terms of the overall build, in terms of the feel of the figure. They both, have the soft goods tunic and skirt and everything that we've got here. Now, the difference on this figure is if you've also got the Sir Gideon figure, Sir Gideon has the more ornate armor. This uses that more ornate armor, but painted very, very differently than Gideon. So it is definitely a cool look and a more detailed, a more ornate look, I guess, than Sir Elijah. Sir Elijah is great with that dark coloring, but this one hits a little bit differently because of the colors it actually uses. Opening up the belts. I mean, these belts are a game changer. I know someone said earlier about the belt packs, and the belt packs are here. These are the black leather and the brown leather. So incredibly cool to get stuff like that. I remember when Joe and I were first talking about that, and he came up with this idea to do this belt pack, and I was immediately like, yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun, because you're right. I mean, I can remember when the original Mythic Legions figures came out, wanting extras of those super basic belts. So these more elaborate belts, yeah, these are just an absolute gift here. That's going on. Okay. Very cool. Pop in these little pauldrons. I shouldn't do that, because that's the one thing that's a little tough. Oh, no, that's not too bad. Finding the pauldron hole through that soft goods, but they're cut really well, that it's not terribly difficult. This one looks a little misaligned over here. And by misaligned, I just mean that the fabric is not currently lined up directly with the soft goods. So I'm going to hold off on that. So, I mean, secondary head, and it's a cool head. I want to say it's one that I would use if he didn't come with that cool Sean Connery looking head. But let's be honest, I'm just going to get an extra. We're going to get an extra, and I'm going to display both of them, right? And this here, I mean, this is super cool. So this soft goods cape is real high end. And this was something I remember when we were designing this figure, because we wanted him to look different than Enoch, So what do you do on the figure that's different than Enoch? And that idea to say, well, hey, what if we give him a cape? Seemingly such a simple request, but definitely this is a high-end premium piece, certainly added to the cost of this figure. I'm not embarrassed to tell you that this figure 100% should have been a deluxe figure. The costs on this figure should have made it deluxe. Eric really wanted to keep this at a standard figure price. So a little bit of a gift to all of the fans out here. One thing that's cool too, I'll show you is, if you don't want those wings, it's also got kind of those scallop pieces as well. So you've got a few different looks that you can achieve on the helmets there. Two different neck pegs in here as well. I know some people are going to ask, why two different neck pegs? It's because one of the heads looks better with the short neck peg. One of the heads looks better with the longer neck peg. Honestly, I can't remember exactly right now which one is which, like which one looks better with one versus the other. I just know that's the answer, that because one looked better with the other, we wanted to make sure we gave you both options to use for your display. So you can make that choice however you want. And you're not like, okay, well, one looks really good, the other one's a bit more of a compromise. Very cool shield there. We've seen this shield before a few times. I mean, this is the same base shield that came with the War of the Aetherblade 2-pack, the Gorgo and Attila 2-pack that had the big design faction logos on it. This just uses the boss there, totally transforms the look of that shield. So very cool. You put that cloak over him. And again, I'm going to eventually get those pauldrons on, but for the sake of speed, this is a great figure. And if you've gotten any of the knights from the Valiant Knight through the Armory Knights, through the Necronominous wave, you know what to expect from the posability of this figure. Single joints, tons of range of motion, both in the arms and in the legs. This has got, I see people all the time that say, does this have the new Valiant Knight articulation? Sir Ignatius will not have it because Sir Ignatius is a reissue of that first figure, but everything else on here, everything else in the wave, all these other knights that we're going to look at, absolutely has that kind of articulation. So loving that figure. Very cool. I did see a lot of Thoras on there. I'm going to wait on Thoras because he was probably the other one I was most excited for here. So I'm going to hold him off for a little bit and not just jump in from him to another. I am going to do another one of the not another one, but I'm going to do a bad guy now. I just grabbed this one here. I'm going to do Scally Bone Splitter. So I hope you don't mind while I'm opening if I tell stories, because if I don't, it's going to suck and we're just going to sit here in silence while you watch me look at a toy. That's not fun. Once again, got the cool little back tray going on. So Scally Bone Splitter was not supposed to be in this wave. Scally Bone Splitter, originally the dwarf head, like we already had the dwarf limbs, right? Because the dwarf lower legs, those are on the tuberculi. So we knew we were starting to build the parts for a dwarf skeleton. And we weren't going to do it. We were going to put this actual head. It was going to be part of the Undead Heads pack. So the Undead Heads pack was originally going to include that, but we kind of felt bad giving people like the parts to make a skeleton dwarf spread across multiple releases. Like, well, you got to buy the tuberculi to get the lower legs. You got to buy this figure and buy this. So we were like, that feels a little too like predatory. Let's actually make a dwarf. Let's make a skeleton dwarf. We know that that's going to be a popular figure. So that's where Scally Bone Splitter ended up coming in. And again, a perfect example of just adding value. You know, this second head, this was added after the fact. Like, you know, this was just saying like, hey, we love to add a second head. It always adds some value. You know, Joe looked at some pieces and this was the one that he proposed. But I mean, interestingly, tonight, my son Jacob, who people that go to Legions Con have probably met Jacob. People that went to Shop the Curiosity recently got to see him. When he came down and saw these figures, this is the head he liked. So it really shows me that even though this is a brand new head, so for me, I have this head on something, not these earpieces are new, but you know, I look at something like this and I'm just like, dude, that's how I have to display this figure by default because that's brand new. But there's always new people coming into this line, and for somebody that might be a brand new head, and that may be how they want to actually display it. So just another example of us adding value to these pieces to allow you to pick and choose how you want to display, or to give you an incentive to buy extras, display it both ways, which is certainly what I suggest. Okay, so Sir Enoch. Super excited for Sir Enoch. Knew I was going to love it. Lived up to all my expectations. Scally Bone Splitter. Probably one of the ones I was less excited for in the wave. And that's not a negative, right? There's always going to be some in the wave that you're less excited for. This figure's blowing me away. And again, it's such a difference than Sir Enoch. Sir Enoch has so much going on with those soft goods and that great, you know, head sculpt and the accessories. This, by comparison, there's a lot fewer new parts in here. We've got that Pox's torso, which is certainly great. We've got, you know, dwarf. I mean, the fact that he's got these lower legs is because we needed to keep him a dwarf, and that's all we had at that point. But despite the fact that it's parts that we've seen a few times, this thing in hand is so much fun. This is a fun figure. Like, people are going to really, really dig this. One thing it does come with that's kind of new is these skull pauldrons, right? So previously we had seen one of these skull pauldrons on the Deluxe Legion Builder Gladiator figure, but it only came with one, drive all those people insane that want to have synergy between their figures. But this is the first time that we've actually gotten both of the pauldrons on the figure, or like for the figure. So that right there is pretty cool. I'm going to arm them up there. But even that, like, dude, like, look at this. So the paint job on this, like, look inside of that. That's the inside of the pauldron. You are never, ever, ever going to see that, right? When it's on the figure, you don't see it. It's painted. Like, that's attention to detail right there. That's what we're giving you here. And again, at pre-order discount, this was a $37 figure. One of the things that we always try to do, because at retail it's $50. We want a figure that at the $50 price, you pick up and open and go, I can't believe this is a $50 figure. This is amazing value for that price, which just makes that pre-order discount insane. Insane value. That is really our goal. Okay, so there is a serious problem with this figure. Serious. He comes with two cool weapons. He's only got two hands. He's got that cool dwarf, almost like cleaver-like sword, which I love. He's got that hammer there, and he's got this axe. Right out of the gate, you have to make a decision. He's also got the shield. So if you want him to wield the dwarf shield, you're taking up a hand. So 4 worthwhile things to put in his hands, and you're going to have to decide for yourself which ones. I'm probably going to go with the big cleaver sword and the hammer, largely because that hammer is so new that it still feels very, very fresh. Yeah, Diego saying, you have my axe. That is kind of a generic dwarven thing to use. One thing I will point out is he does have an extra pair of ankle pegs. Ankle pegs are the new wing adapters, apparently. A lot of figures are coming with extra ankle pegs, and it's because some of the lower legs actually use a slightly smaller ankle peg. So Chris has been, when appropriate, packing extra ankle pegs. So depending on the pop and swaps you may want to do, if an ankle peg that comes on the foot naturally doesn't fit, you have a swap out you can do to use some of those lower legs. Yeah, shield hanging off the back would be cool too. So he's only got the one little belt, and it doesn't have like one of the back pieces. But again, it's where belt packs come in. Use one of these belt packs, a lot of different options. These are going to be a lot of fun for sure. So very, very different look from that first figure we opened. And I'm getting very different feels. Like I said, first one living up to the expectations. Second one here, just he's so cool, just packed into this little tiny package, which the dwarf fans are all like, there we go. There's a message for our year of the dwarf. Lots of cool packed into a little tiny package. Yeah. Love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, everybody, hit me up. What am I opening next? Hit me in the chat. Those hammers are sick, Mini Pete. I agree. G is saying another year of the dwarf. And I've got a vote for Thoras, a vote for a sandwich, Barodac, Andrew, another Barodac, another Andrew. Ooh, we're close there. Ooh, another Andrew, a Thoras. So we've got a little bit of a tie here. Raider. Tell you what, I'm going to open up Sir Andrew. I'm going to open up Sir Andrew next. So this is one of those figures where the story behind it makes it cooler. So we all know Joe Vassapolo. We've seen him on the show lots and lots of times. Joe has contributed so many things to these particular figures. Joe pulling the parts for the Legions Con figures, for instance. He routinely has added pieces that make those figures better. But this was a figure while we were working on the Necronominus wave, because when we did the Necronominus wave, we had all these parts. Like we had the faceplates for Elijah and Enoch. We had the faceplates. This faceplate, this helmet, it's the same construction as the Sir Adalric figure. So we had the Adalric head and we had this head, and we knew we were going to hold stuff back. So doing the Necronominus wave and the Allstars wave was kind of an exercise in, well, what do we put in the first? What do we hold back for the second? So we were in some ways planning out All-Star 6 while we were designing Necronominus. And right out of the gate, we knew we were going to have another knight figure. And he said, I want Joe to design this. Joe loves knights. Like knights, Joe loves a lot of things. Joe loves dwarves, but Joe is big into knights and heraldry and all that stuff. So he knew that we wanted to let Joe design a figure. And the character, Sir Andrew, so it's named after Joe's son, Andrew. So there's a bit of a tribute there to his son, which is obviously always nice and touching. But besides that, he decided on all the parts, figured out what he wanted to do, was blown away when he was told that he could add soft goods to it. And he came up with some really interesting and unusual soft goods pieces to include with this. And he decided to paint it like Sir Galeron. Sir Galeron. Joe Russo was asking me recently how to pronounce it, and honestly, I don't know. But I think he said that Cornboy had pronounced it Sir Galeron in the original Kickstarter, and what Cornboy says goes. So if Cornboy says Sir Galeron, so do I. Whatever his name may be, however it's pronounced, it is a very hard to find figure that was almost selected as an All-Stars in the All-Star 6 wave. Because he missed that final spot by not an insurmountable amount of votes, it was a small number of votes, Joe, who really likes that figure, wanted to do something that could be used as, if not a fill-in, at least give that same kind of color pop on your shelf of knights. So this is what he created here. And I will tell you right out of the gate that the face paint on this figure, like the face sculpture in the paint, is without a doubt one of the best I've seen in the line to date. Absolutely. It is absolutely phenomenal. It's a great sculpture, and we've seen this on a few other figures since then. But just seeing it here, it's phenomenal. And that's what it looks like with the visor down. So you've got this brand new, and I mentioned that this is a similar head build to the Sir Adalric. It's the same head sculpture, like the same helmet and stuff, but it's a different visor. So this is part of, one of the things Eric's done over the last few years is build systems. So instead of just building parts, build systems. So the fact that he sculpts this new helmet, but he's got two different visors, two different faceplates for three different ones technically on both ends, because we've got the skull ones as well. It's something that we can add some variety by mixing and matching those parts, by adding new parts instead of having to do a whole new helmet. Just a new, faceplate or a new visor totally mixes things up. So really, really cool to see that there. Other new stuff we've got going on with this figure. So we've got these pauldrons that came. We saw these wing pauldrons for the first time once again with Sir Adalric, but these have different front pieces there. Those little pieces, they literally just pop right out. So again, building systems, Eric builds these pauldrons. He builds these little inserts for them, and we can do some different things by mixing and matching and swapping some of those. Figure does, of course, come with a secondary head because when Joe was building this, he was also creating, kind of an army builder. So Sir Andrew's story is that he's a pyromancer, so he's a fire magic, and as a young child actually had an accident with that magic, and his family died as a result of that. He was trained by Joran Runeshaper and the Convocation of Basilia to really control that magic. And since that point, he has become someone who fights for the Order of Aetheron and, using his magic and leading a team of kind of warriors called the Repentant, who are all basically former criminals or former miscreants of some kind, people that have done things for which they have to atone in some way. They are who the Repentant actually is. So he leads them. These are some very, very complex and interesting soft goods. So these are really unique. Like Joe really did something. He kind of constructed these himself, and we sent it to CJ to figure out how to do it. But, that front part goes over the front there. And then there's some spots for the pauldrons. Definitely one of the things that I will say with this wave, with these soft goods, is you're going to have to take a few minutes with these pauldrons because especially with the introduction of soft goods, it makes those pauldrons a little more challenging. As a pyromancer, Joe wanted to include some fire magic. So this is the flame effect that originally came with the Irithyr figure. We've also seen it recently. It came with the Arakagor figure, and it came recently with the Stavros figure as well. But very cool here. So it also includes this elven sword, because the elven sword is one of the swords that you can kind of put it on to get that cool burning sword type look, which I think looks really neat. I'll pop in these pauldrons. I'm not going to throw the soft goods on right now because just even playing around with it, I can tell that I'm going to need a few minutes to concentrate on how to do that. Looking for the shield handle. So these figures also come with both the shield handles and the original C-clips. Another thing we have to thank Joe for. Joe's been a big proponent of including those C-clips with figures. I think that there are certain instances where the C-clips work better. There's other instances where the handles work better. So literally getting both of them is kind of the perfect solution, since it gives you the flexibility to use the one you want depending on what you're doing, right? Also comes with a very large kite shield. Love that shield. Looks very different. Yeah, so that's looking really, really cool. This is a good figure. This is another one that is actually currently sold out on Big Bad Toy Store. So another one. This is one. So Sir Enoch the Templar was a much larger seller than Sir Andrew. So I think that two different things are happening. I think Sir Enoch has just been popular since the beginning. Sir Andrew is one that I think a few people might have slept on a little bit. For some people, I've heard him, there's a lot of people that he's their favorite of the wave. I know the Euro Legions guys love this figure. But I think some people might have slept on it, or for budgetary purposes, maybe said, I'll pick it up down the road. And now they're going out and they're adding him to pre-orders. So he might be another one that's going to be a little hard to find. So Cloud is at home, apparently opening her all in while I open mine, which is a lot of fun. Cloud, I'm happy you're doing that. You're enjoying your time, following along with me. Yeah, this is a really, really strong figure here. How do you use the blue effect with Andrew since he doesn't have a staff? Well, let's see. How could I use it? I mean, you could also use it on the sword. You could use it on the sword like that. I mean, there's different things you can do. You can also maybe give him one of the kind of casting hands. Let's see how that looks. And remember, I do have a blow dryer here, a hair dryer, just in case I need it to apply heat to something. Always worth mentioning that when you're opening up these figures, if you feel any resistance, don't force it. Put a little heat on it. Literally 20 seconds of heat can be an absolute game changer for how you're able to display and impose these figures and open them. So, I mean, you can do something like that where you position this around his, how do I get it? Around his arm. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely things that you can do to kind of make it like he's casting that spell. Yeah. Something I'll be playing around with more. His helmet does not have a plungy. His helmet actually has a spike. So it comes with the spike, but because it's the same head that comes with a Dalric, the plume from a Dalric would absolutely work there as well. This particular one just doesn't have a plume. Very cool. Even just position like that with that hand out like that. Oof. Yeah. Really, really strong figure. Love that. So the figure that I was probably most excited for this wave is the big guy, Barodac. Barodac is the equivalent of the Big Greg figure, right? They're Sir Enoch. So this is the kind of evil version of that figure. Uses a lot of the same parts, of course. This one's got a lot of twist ties in it. So to make this go faster, I brought some little snips with me just to save the time. Anything that's going to get these things open faster, right? Without breaking them. So one of the things I love about Barodac is, not only do I just love the color, we've mentioned before that when I got to stop for a second. Like the way this is packed, these little spikes there have like little pieces of plastic, little plastic cylinders on top of them so they don't get damaged. And on top of that, you've got this whole other like plastic piece there. So there's a lot of protection in this figure to make it so it arrives to you and can be opened in good condition. Yeah, these are like fairly hard plastic little sleeves that are over those pegs. So if you saw me on the Collection Nexus on Sunday, you may have seen that I was playing around with this, which is actually a Barodac test shot. So I've had this in my hands for a short time. This kind of was up until now filling that need for me to play around with Barodac. But very, very excited to have this particular figure in hand, because the idea of this figure being the twin of Belualith, I think is a lot of fun. One of the things that I'm so excited for having been able to do is, contribute to the lore of these characters and add more members to Necronominus's weird children. In that first kind of group of figures, we had Malleus, that first wave, the first child of Necronominus. Then in the Advent of Decay wave, we actually got both Morgulith and Brother Mandibulus, the three children of Necronominus. So when we were working on these waves, I loved the idea of adding more children of Necronominus, and that started with Belualith. I've mentioned before that I love the idea of twins that look nothing alike. The Dragonlance books have Caramin and Rasslin, a big burly warrior character in Caramin and a sickly wizard, frail wizard character in Rasslin. I love that contrast of those two different types of characters that are so similar and so different. That's kind of what I wanted to do here with Belualith and Barodac, just by tying them in together. I thought was a lot of fun. Now, one thing I will point out is he comes with two different sets of gauntlets. So he comes with the very knightly gauntlets like you see on Sir Enoch, and then he comes with the bigger, more brutal ones that we've seen on the ogre since the beginning. It's on those are on by default, and that's actually the way I like them better. So I'm going to keep those on. So, well, head just popped off. Easy peasy. I just grabbed the head and it just twisted it the exact right way, so it came off. Super easy. Pops right back on. So like the Sir Enoch, this chest plate here does come off. It's not really clipped on or anything. If you want it to stay on a little tighter, one thing you can do is take a little tiny piece of blue tack, just put it right there, pop it on, just a little tiny piece, just so there's something actually holding it there. That would certainly help. One thing I will say is the pauldrons on the Sir Enoch, they're a little flimsy. Flimsy is the wrong word. They're a little loose. They pop out very, very easily if you're fiddling around with it too much. Again, tiny dab of blue tack fixes it. It's a super, super minor thing to fix. This one feels actually tighter in there. It's a little more solid. Comes with that absolutely insane sword that we first got with the dragon figure, Arakagor. So very, very tight hands. So what I'm going to do is a little public service announcement. His hands are really, really tight. I can't get the sword in. So rather than forcing and potentially breaking, I'm going to give it some heat. That's about all it's going to take. Now that hand is far more flexible, and I can just put that sword right in there. Once it cools, be nice and tight. If you have water, you could always put some cold water on it if you want to cool it immediately. But yeah, this figure is, a lot less to play around with than the other figures. It's not like, the Sir Andrew that we just looked at that's got a ton of different ways you could build it out, but the army builder type character with the repentant. This has got one look, but it's an incredibly solid look. And this armor color, that witch's cauldron that Eric wanted Cameron to go for and Cameron just nailed, it's absolutely looking great. This is the figure I was looking forward to the most for a variety of reasons. And I'm not a huge ogre scale guy normally, but this is the one I was looking forward to the most and delivered absolutely in every way. Really, really dig this one. And I mean, just the detail on this thing is just insane. So a lot of similar parts to the Big Greg figure. Obviously, new head, new chest plate here. Again, the inclusion of those different gauntlets. Actually, is the waist piece different? That's definitely different, the buckle. Very cool. Loving that figure a lot. I'm going to change gears a little bit. I'm going to look at this. So we talked about this, or they talked about this on the... Yeah, but all-ins are part of that pre-order. That's one of the advantages of getting that pre-order is you get that all-in. You get the additional discount. So while these are cheaper during the pre-order, the all-in is even discounted further. So we don't order extra all-ins to sell at a later date. That we have in the past had a few extras that we've sold. And by a few, I literally mean like sub 10. But it's not something we do intentionally. So, and I know with these, 0 all-ins left. They're all 100% gone. So no extras. But that's, again, why you pre-order. The head's back. First thing you're going to realize when you get it is really, really light, like surprisingly light. Like I remember when the Xenothon figure from Allstars 5 got in hand, you lifted that up and you were surprised, like you were shocked how heavy it was. This is the exact opposite. This thing is so incredibly light. They talked about it on the afternoon show. It actually has the surprise edition. So that Malleus head in the standard bone color that was not shown in any of the promo pieces. Apparently what happened was that head was in the paint tray to use as paint matching and went over to the factory and they just thought that it was part of the set and they ran it and we never said no. So it ended up in here. So bonus for all of you. This is a cool set. And the fact that you get 6 different bone heads there, plus those 2 zombies, this is an example of a set that makes other figures more valuable or more desirable. And this is something, I mean, Joe's in the chat now. Joe, your ears must be burning because I've been talking about you all night tonight. But Joe's a big proponent of heads packs. This particular heads pack I think is great because it really makes the undead builder pack from the Necronominus wave something you're going to want to pick up an extra or 2 of. And it makes literally any of these bone skeletons something you're going to want extras of. So one of the things that we did in both the Necronominus wave and the All-Star 6 wave was use a standard color for all of the skeletons. We call it our standard bone. What that's going to allow you to do is whether you grab a Tuberculi, a Necronominus, a Scally Bone Splitter, a Maxilius the Harvester, a Skeleton Raider, they all have the same bone color. So you are going to be able to mix and match any of those parts, including with this head pack, to get some different skeletons. Now, what I had told people when the Tuberculi was coming out was I said, make sure you pick up an extra because there's something you are going to want to use this for in the future. So I already opened up an extra Tuberculi. What I did was I swapped it around. So I've got the really long arms on there. And I've also turned the neck around. And that's the neck kind of bends, like curves down and forward. I want to turn it so it curves up a little bit, which really messes with the bones in front. You don't even see it. It's okay. Because the reason is I want to put that gorilla skull head on there. Because that gorilla skull head on this, it's even got those big fists like he's, on the ground there. I think that is looking so incredibly cool. Like this is absolutely one of the things I wanted to do. And it's also how I'm probably going to use the wings. So these are the exact same wings that we see in the Necronominus figure. And fair warning, it's $8.50, so I'm not going to be able to open up all these figures tonight. I'm kidding. I'm just going to stay late. That's the warning. The warning isn't we're going to get all the figures. The warning is you're going to be here a little late with me because I got more toys to play with. Okay, so first things first, we're going to get some more heat on these. A little dance. Just want to be able to move those. Oh, it's tight. Oh, not enough heat on that, apparently. Go. Oof, that is really. So I'm trying to bend that right there, and it's really, really fused. So what I'll do is I'm going to heat up the back of his back parts. Once I put this in, I'll have one of the things is that peg is so small, it's hard to really get like a handle on it. But once it's actually in the figure, oh, that is tight. That might actually be a situation where that joint is a little fused because I cannot move that. But we're going to plunge forward and you're going to get the point. Oh my goodness, is that cool? Put these. I'm going for a flying monkey right here, guys. Something I had wanted to do as soon as I saw all these parts. This is one of those, all the way back to that first Mythic Legions wave where I would be planning the customs that I wanted to do before they actually arrived. This is one I really wanted to do, this crazy looking flying monkey. Yeah, JG, I usually use hot water as well. Just tonight, it's for when I'm doing a hour and a half, 2 hour live stream, the water's going to get cold. So a blow dry ends up being better for something like this. But how cool is that, right? Yeah, really, really dig this. And obviously, that's just with that kind of gorilla skull in there. Any of these head packs heads are going to work in this. So if I pull that off and I decide to use, now this one does not have an articulated jaw. Neither does this one here. This kind of like this cat head. That doesn't have an articulated jaw either. The orc, the vampire, they all have the articulated jaw. So a lot of super cool options there. But I also mentioned the zombie heads. You know, you've got 2 zombie heads in here. You've got a repaint of Hagnon, and then you've got that head that was originally a ghost inside of the Undead Builder pack. But it's such a good-looking head with such cool details that it was almost a shame not to have it painted. So putting it here, having it painted like this here, just looks so incredibly cool. And this is also the head that we've repainted scaphoid green to include as a bonus in the Warrior Revenant set for Legions Con. And then, of course, if you want to go Hagnon, there we go as well. This was a head. I repainted the Hagnon head very, very early on after Advent of Decay arrived. And it was such a great sculpture. It always, again, felt like a shame to me that the paints weren't applied to it to really bring out those details. We saw it painted for the first time in the Frankenstein's creature set from Figure Obscura, and we see it here as well. Actually, we saw it here first, but we got it in hand with Frankenstein first. So lots of great options there. So much to be excited for with this. Looking on the table, I've got a couple figures left. I've got Skeleton Raider, I've got the horse, and I've got Thoras. So let's open Skeleton Raider. So Skeleton Raider was one where we wanted to do, and I'm going to clean this up tomorrow. Like, I'm looking at the mess I'm making, and I'm just already like, no way I am cleaning this up tonight. It's kind of like a Joe Vassapolo, like Jeremy pop and swap night. But unfortunately, instead of me just going home in the morning and Joe being left with it, I have to actually clean it all up. So I much prefer it the other way, Joe. But I always do feel bad. If it means anything, I feel bad that I leave you with all that stuff. So with this particular figure, and I know a lot of people have been asking whether or not this helmet can come off to be used on the legendary barbarian. So this helmet is not easily removable. It is glued on, but it is a separate piece. So with some heat and force, you should be able to get it off, but I'm not going to do that tonight because it didn't just pop right out. So, but when we started designing this figure, again, we had this head. So we knew this head has such a classic fantasy feel to it that we wanted to create just kind of like, you know, a classic, like those stop motion Harryhausen type skeletons. Now, of course, we really, really did that with the Skeleton Legion Builder too. We knew that we were going to do that figure. We knew that we had done a bear skeleton under the robes for Maxilius, and we knew we were going to do Skeleton Legion Builder. So for this one, we wanted to kind of armor him up a little bit, but not too much. I love the fact that he does come with this Calavius head, because that, I mean, right there, you're going to be able to make a really cool skeleton gladiator out of this. So there's some cool vibes there. One of the things I love about this figure is the different like bracelets and armor pieces that he includes. You know, that was something that Eric was super excited about for this wave, is just including these different pieces that could be mixed and matched onto the figures in all kinds of ways to really change the way they look. And it's something that the Legions line did not include initially, right? Those early waves, every figure had 3 accessories. Like the first non-weapon like accessory that I can remember coming out was probably like Kratos' satchel. And I remember that when that first came out, I was like, this is so cool. Because prior to that, I'd been using, big surprise, a lot of Lord of the Rings parts to add things like bags and extra belts and stuff like that to the figures. So getting that on an actual Legions figure was like game changer. Now that we're seeing all these different bits and bobs for you to outfit your characters, I really think it's going to add just a ton of fun and display options for people who like these figures. Again, another figure with a lot of different options. He's got, besides those wrist things, he's got, different shoulder pads. We've seen these before. He's got a different loin piece, the wooden shield. He's got that Kopesh sword. So lots of different things that you can use, that you can display these figures with. A lot of different options for you. Plus extra hands. He's got the mace and all those extra hands. Again, like I said at the start of the show, compare any of these figures to the Allstars reissues, and it's absolute evidence of what I'm saying, where it's like these older figures, I mean, the newer figures are just so incredibly stacked that this is the type of stuff that we're really excited to be putting out. Like, we feel really good about these representing the line, because that's the thing I always think about is, if you're someone who's been in the line for a long time and you pick up a Clavian, it's cool to say like, oh, I've filled that hole in my collection. But I always think about the new fan who comes up at a toy show. They come and see us at Toylanta or IshCon or whatever, and they are buying a figure for the first time and they pick up a Clavian. I still stand by that figure and think it's a great figure and worth every penny, but it does not have the wow factor that these newer figures do. And that's really, I think, important. That's what we want, is we want people to just be so blown away by these figures and what they get out of the box. This is another figure like Scally that the design is pretty straightforward and simple, and it doesn't totally blow you away in those initial photos. In hand, this thing is so much fun. Like this figure, all of that hand candy that you got with the Skeleton Legion Builder 2, this has all that hand candy, but with extra armor and weapons and accessories. I think that this, out of the box, might be the most fun figure in this wave. Yeah, this figure is a ton of fun. Oof, I'm going to spend some more time with him for sure. For sure. Okay, and then there were two. Let's go to the horse, the controversial horse. We did an interview, as I mentioned, on Sunday on the Collection Nexus, and they actually asked me a little bit about the drama with this horse. Those who were around may remember that initially this horse was shown. It was meant to be a Templar horse, and it was shown with a full hood, which unfortunately made him look very much like a clan horse. We didn't want any association with that, however unintentional it may have been. So we made the creative decision to distance ourselves definitively away from anything that could be construed as that. So the downside is if you really wanted a Templar horse with the hood and the crosses and stuff, we're not giving that to you. But the cool thing is we are giving you this, which I think actually fits better in the world of Mythos. The Templars have always been kind of a weird part of our story. And, we've said before that they're not meant to be Templars in the sense of our real world Templars. They get their name Templar from the Temple of Aetheron, which is supposedly the final resting place of the golden god eagle Aetheron. So the Templars are the sect of Aetheron that kind of protect that. That's where that name comes from. And the cross is not meant to be the cross of Jesus Christ. The cross was meant in our story to be a very simplified version of a cross, a very simplified version of a sword. So it was meant to basically be a simplified version of the Heaven's Brand sword, just like the pattern that's on the Baron Valagar was meant to be a simplified version of Alethea's form. So obviously at the end of the day, we want people to buy the toys because they think they're cool. And we know that when people can make a connection with a toy to something they recognize, like a Templar Knight, that may get them into the line. It's just like what we used to do, or what we still do with the PowerCon figures. Getting someone into the line because they recognize an association with a character to something they already know is a great way to get them introduced to Legions. And then once they're introduced to Legions, hopefully they start getting into other things. You can actually, speaking of PowerCon figures, you can see those are right behind me. That's actually a run of PowerCon figures. But I'm going to open this. So, still got some ties there that I didn't cut off. So one of the things that we did with this figure was not only release a brand new horse, Deacon, the Templar emissary horse. We also did a very kind of sly way, subtle way of reissuing one of the first horses in the line, which was, and I'm totally drawing a blank right now, Erether and, oh my goodness, I'm totally drawing a blank, Balius. Erether and Balius. So that first horse, Balius, was so hard to find after it came out because it wasn't a bad seller, but it didn't sell like what the horses do today. But then when it got in hand and people started playing with it and they started realizing how awesome it looked with the Mezco Conan, for instance, or many other figures, it started crossing toy lines. Like a lot of people who didn't necessarily buy a lot of Legions started buying it. So it went really fast. It was really hard to keep. We used to bring them to shows and they would just fly off the table. So the great thing is when we did these kind of, white Templar style soft goods, Eric had said, I really would love to put them on a brown horse. And that was kind of that aha moment where we said, oh, if we're going to put them on a brown horse, let's just make it Balius. Like, let's just reissue Balius underneath all of the soft goods. So it also comes with, on the figure, it's got the plastic, the blanket that's under the saddle, but it's also got a soft goods one here, just like Bishop did. Bishop had the same thing where it came with the plastic one, and it came with the soft goods, and it's also got the mane, so you can turn it into Balius. It's got the weapons that originally came with Balius and the bridle that came with Balius as well. Those are all things we've seen before. This is super cool. So this, and as I mentioned at the time, this does still have the cross on it because this wasn't one of the things that was problematic. So we weren't trying to get rid of the crosses. It was just the way they were used on that figure. This looks great. It's not going to be a big surprise for anyone that has any of our horses. It's a horse. I mean, like I said, it's literally a Balius underneath all those soft goods. The soft goods are the heroes here. CJ continues to do just an amazing, amazing job on the soft goods for the figures, and the ones that he did for the horses with Bishop and with this are just absolutely incredible. So this particular horse, while it's meant to be a Templar emissary horse, Deacon is actually the horse of this character here. So it is meant to be Sir Enoch's horse. Man, look at that. When I got Sir Gideon in hand and I opened up Sir Gideon and Bishop and I put them together, it was really like, wow, these are two great figures that once you put them together become even better. Exactly the same here. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Together, these things are impressive. Yeah, I'm a little speechless just looking at it. This is something special. And that's, I still have to get all his other stuff on him. Oh. And then you put the cloak on him. Wow. This is good. Another pro tip, Deacon, not a lot of him to go around. So the horses are 4 per case. What happens a lot of times with retailers is they'll just order 1 case of everything, right? Now, a figure like Sir Enoch or Sir Andrew, for this wave, they were 24 per case. So they order 1, they have 24 of that figure. But so many retailers just kind of in their rush to place an order don't always look at case packs and they just say, give me 1 of everything. So they get 4 horses and they sell very, very quickly. We get a lot of requests, like with Bishop, for instance, a lot of people, a lot of retailers saying, hey, I completely under-ordered Bishop and Conibus, the skeleton horse. Can I get extras? And we don't have extras to send them. Even when we go to shows, those are the ones that routinely sell first. We didn't order a ton of extras. So I'm telling you this because trying to prepare you. If you have not ordered, I said earlier, if you haven't ordered these figures yet, don't sleep on them because they're not going to be around at retailers for that much longer. I don't think they will be, at least. I think we're going to start seeing those sellouts, especially now that the all-ins are in. I think people are going to start seeing all the photos that the people that got all-ins are going to share. They're going to watch a video like this, and they're going to be like, oh, I've got to get one of those. And that remaining stock at retailers is not going to last. Now, we will have these at shows in the future in limited numbers at those same retailer prices. So that's something to keep in mind. We don't have a ton of these. This would be one. Just like I said, Sir Andrew, Sir Enoch, they're sold out some places. Don't sleep on those. Don't sleep on Deacon either. Okay, so that brings us to last but not least, and ironically, his name is first. This is Thoras, the First Risen. So Thoras is a character that is another one of the children of Necronominus, and he's actually the eldest child. So in Necronominus's absence, Morgulith, his daughter, has pretty much served in the role as leader of the congregation. But as Necronominus returns, so too does his other children. We've already looked at Barodac tonight. Barodac pairs with Belualith. They're the twins. They're the youngest of the children. They're the ones that are always actually closest physically, like proximity-wise. They're the ones that are always closest to Necronominus. But the one that really goes out to lead his forces, the one who takes over from Morgulith, is Thoras. Once again, absolutely loaded. So we've got his cape here. We've got his soft goods banner. We just saw that soft goods banner. We've got just a bag of parts here. Armor, accessories, belts. This is one of the things that's very exciting in this actual box, and that is the shield of Necronominus. So these shields, these faction symbol shields have been very, very popular. We get one right here. You know, and I liked giving it to Thoras when we talked through that decision, because we've given some faction leaders those shields, right? So Arethair wields it. Attila wields it as well. But then when we did Zylona's flock, that's not the kind of shield that Artemis would wield. She wouldn't have that. So we gave it to other characters in the flock. We made the shield an important part of their character. Similarly with the congregation, Necronominus would not use this shield. So we gave it to his eldest son, kind of almost like as a birthright. I thought it was kind of cool. So he's the one that actually gets to wield it. So right out of the gate, we've got, a cool mix here of armor and skeletal parts. Again, we've got one of those things I told you about, the loose bracelet armor pieces. So you can see his skeletal torso there, but we've got the ripped soft goods that looks very, very cool. So this is one, and I did see some people talking about this figure today in the Cabal, and it sounds like exactly what I expected. This is a figure that, as you fully kit him out, just looks that much cooler. So I am going to do that. I'm going to kit this figure fully out because he's our last one of the night. So that's definitely worth doing. But these are figures that they take a little bit of time for you to play with. And it's interesting because I know there was a debate about that on the Cabal somewhat recently where someone was questioning, the lack of, I don't even know how he put it, but he was basically talking about how these days it's getting more and more complex to play with these figures. They take more time to put together. And that's 100% true. They're more complex figures than we've ever done before. So they're definitely going to take some time to put together. I don't think that's a bad thing, right? Because we want these figures as collectors. We want figures that have see, I don't get that, Cloud. I don't get the I don't want to work to enjoy my toys. It's like not everything's cut from the same proverbial cloth, right? Like if you want a figure that you just pop it open and immediately can play with it, yeah, I mean, there's tons of toys out there that do that. But something that I personally say all the time that really frustrates me is judging things for what they aren't versus what they are. And like I said, this is what the line is kind of about in a lot of ways these days is, we are pushing the limit with the level of accessories that we add to these things and stuff. And, it's going to take a few minutes. I mean, we're not talking about a Lego set where it's pages of instructions for you to figure out how to assemble it, but it's going to take a few minutes to put this stuff together to get that look. But not everyone. When I responded to that, I had mentioned, Skeleton Legion Builder 2, Tuperculi even. There's a lot of figures that out of the box, Sir Elijah, out of the box, not a lot of putting together on there, pop in some armor and stuff, and they're incredibly playable out of the box. But I'm okay with a figure that takes me a few extra minutes to put together because it looks this cool. Okay. So putting the armor through the holes in the cape, and then now I just gotta get them into the back here. So one of the challenges is definitely that you can only get them so far in. You try to put it through a couple pieces of fabric here. So this is one of those things that'll take a few minutes. And then once you find that like fit, once you find that spot, it'll just pop in and it's like, boom, now it's good. And it's funny, I got one in and the other one, I'm still just trying to find that like perfect fit. That feels good. Oh, how many times have you done this? You finally get the pauldrons in and you forgot to put the belt on. The belt is just sitting there and you're like, oh, I forgot to put that on. So then you got to undo the pauldrons and start all over again. Happens to the best of us, people. Happens to the best of us. So putting on the belts here. I'm just going for a crisscross pattern. Pretty simple. I'm a simple guy. So there's actually a chain around this. So you just slip the chain over the neck. Like I said, find those ports for the pauldrons and then just plug those in. Out of the box, you're going to notice that the neck on Thorasis is pretty long. Like it looks awkwardly long. And it's just because it's meant to use these other pieces. Like you want to be able to have that fur around the cape and stuff. It's part of the full look of the figure. When everything's in, it really does flesh it out and look the way it's supposed to. So then you just got to figure out what pieces to use. So this is super cool, right? So the bottom of the flagpole is the same thing that we've seen for like the halberd in there. It's the bottom of the halberd. But the top, where normally that halberd thing would go, is a brand new piece that really transforms how this looks. And I put it together wrong. I actually put this flag around the halberd part. It doesn't actually go there. It goes around this new piece. And it's actually even easier to install on that new piece. So that's where it goes. And then you plug in to the halberd and you get that flag. And this is wired, so you can get some really cool movement out of this. Yeah. Very, very cool. Ironically, I'm probably not going to use, I don't even know where I put here we go. I'm probably not going to use the flag with Thorasis because I really like both the shield and the sword. So I want him to be wielding the shield and the sword. Even though the sword is one we've seen before, it's a big sword. It looks right in his hands. We wanted him to have a weapon that had a bit of substance to it. And he's got to have the shield. I mean, the shield is like the essential piece here, right? Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show this evening. While I'm finishing this up, I'll do a little bit of housekeeping and let you know that sadly, tonight's show is going to have to tide you over for a few weeks because I am going to be taking a few weeks off. So next week, I will actually be visiting Colorado, going out to Colorado for a few days. So I won't be here for next Wednesday. And then after that, I actually have some just family obligations. My daughter's going to be graduating. I've got family visiting for that. So I'm going to be taking a few weeks off. Of course, you will see me on June 6th. June 6th is the day that we are doing the Infinite Legions reveal. So I will absolutely be involved in that. But this is what Thorasis is looking like. Again, I'm looking forward to spending a little bit more time with each of these, but even tonight, absolutely incredible. This is another one of those figures like Sir Enoch that I was very much anticipating, and it lives up to everything I expected it to be. Wow. This is a really solid figure. Like, this is just a figure. Like, so outside of Thorasis's role in our story, this is the kind of figure that if someone's just looking for a cool skeleton Death Knight type character for their collection, this checks those boxes in every single way. Because as much as I love like the Skeleton Raider, those fully skeletal figures, to see a figure like this that's got some of the armor and it's got that shield and stuff, super, super cool. Really digging that. This, I've said that the Necronominus wave I think it was such a triumph for us. You know, I really think it broached some incredible new ground. This wave is just such a worthwhile successor to that one. Once again, a great mix of characters here, even though we're getting a lot of similarities with skeletons and knights. These are our bread and butter, right? These are the things that I think we do so incredibly well. And you're seeing it between the Necronominus wave and this wave. You're seeing it just on display so well here. I love the Necronominus wave, but there are some heavy hitters in this. Skeleton Raider, Scally Bone Splitter, and Sir Andrew all exceeded my expectations. Those are all ones that in hand absolutely blew me away. I can't really say that Enoch and Thorasis exceeded my expectations because I had such high expectations. I don't know if they could have been exceeded. I was expecting them to be pretty much perfect figures, and they absolutely did. Barodac is a great looking figure. Like the ogres, not the most fun figure. You're not going to have as much popping and swapping and playability with Barodac as you do with all the others. That being said, in Big Greg, cover your ears, this is probably my favorite ogre scale figure in the line so far. So that says a lot right there. I really dig that figure. Wing packs, head pack, accessory pack, really cool, adding, I think, a lot of playability and a lot of value into this set. There's been so much fun with messing with these skeleton parts that these just add to that fun, I think, in a really big way. I mean, that's all that. I mean, and then, like I said, 4 really cool reissues as well, especially if those are figures you didn't have in your collection. That's great. Oh, come on, Greg. Not unfriended. You wouldn't do that to me, buddy. So what do you guys think? What are some of the ones you are most looking forward to from this wave? Or those people who actually have it in hand, which figures have turned out to be your favorites? I'm curious. Your favorites and your biggest surprise. That's stuff that I'm curious about. I always love to know that. Chef Omar saying, excited about the reissues, don't have any of them. Yeah, I mean, that's always great. That's what it's all about. The Knights are my favorite. Dude, the Knights in this particular wave are absolutely stellar. Absolutely so incredible. I think I'm more excited after watching this show for AS6. Well, that's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about, buddy. This wave is an absolute hit, says Cloud. I think Sir Andrew color looks better in hand versus pictures. Very hard color to capture in pictures for sure. Thoras, Scaling, Enoch are my top 3, but they're all great figures. Absolutely fair. Sir Enoch, Scaling, and the Raider are my top favorites. Interesting. Agree. Those are some awesome ones. Skeleton Barbarian looks more interesting. Allstars were going to go out. They went out with a bang. Absolutely. And that's not to say that they won't ever come back. We've got to get to a point where it makes sense to do it again. Because, as we said last year, everyone obviously votes for the oldest and most expensive figures, which also tend to be some of our, more basic figures because they're from wave 1. We're 11 years past that at this point. Mythic Pizza in Zone A on Saturday, says Thomas. I love to hear that. I thought I was excited for Enoch. Now it's Sir Andrew. Gee, Ben, they're both absolutely stellar figures. Absolutely stellar. Like I said, for me, it's different because Enoch was one I was heavily anticipating. And again, not to say that I wasn't excited for this figure. It's just everyone's got figures that they're more excited for than others. In hand, and it's interesting because this figure is built like Sir Enoch. Sir Enoch was my big surprise of the Necronominus wave. It was the one I was the least excited for, and the one that in hand really, really surprised me. And it's the same thing happened here again with not really a similar build, but similar pauldrons in head. But this one of those figures, this is the one that in hand. I knew the color was going to be great because I love the Sir Galeron color, but yeah, this figure is a lot of fun. Just ordered Barodac after seeing it here. Hell yeah, that's what it's all about. Looking forward to a version 2 Howmare. Okay. Authors saying, got shipping notification. Mine is arriving tomorrow. Excellent. Enjoy that. Cloud saying a dark was a big surprise for me too. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the face on this, Joe, I don't know if you're still in the chat, but I imagine that you were happy with how this ended up coming out. I think it's absolutely stunning. I think that face, the face paint on this is arguably the best I've seen in the line. Yeah, this is absolutely great. Yep. Joe says here it came out great. Absolutely. Just every one of these. Like, I just don't know which one to pick up next. Like I said that I don't think I'm going to display him with the flag. That I put the flag in his hand. It's like, nope, he gets the flag. I'll have to put like the sword like through his back or something, like through his belt to have it on his back because he literally has to have that flag. Just look how cool it is. No way he can't have that. Dude, this one's fun. Like this is like a bring it to work and put it on your desk and play with it figure all day. And again, you get a figure like this. You get that heads pack. So let's pop out that orc skull. You know, boom. Something as simple as that. Now, bang. So much playability. Dude, that orc skull is cool. I've seen the vampire one because the vampire one came with the graveyard skeleton. So we've seen that, but this is the first time we've got the orc skull in hand, and it's darn cool. Darn cool. And again, you can pair this with the skeleton hand pack from the Necronominus wave, which is painted to match these colors as well. So if you want even, dude, I don't know why you need additional hands because literally, so all of my skeletons have hands on right now. And on the table, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I count 10 extra, 11, 12, 13. I have 13 extra skeleton hands after opening this all in. So that's not, obviously, if I had a skeleton hands pack, that's more options as well. And it's probably some different options, like some of the bigger ones are in there. But these things are loaded, man. You get so much cool stuff with these. We just try not to suck, as Cornboy always says. Thank you all very much for joining me this evening for Mythic Conversations. I genuinely do not know when I will be back. Like I said, next few weeks are a little crazy, but if I don't come back and do a Wednesday night show before June 6th, I will see you there. Check out the Source Horseman website. Check out our social channels. We will be posting more information about that Infinite Legions reveal special and the pre-order that will follow at the end of that special. Again, that's the Infinite Legions Thaden pre-order. Very excited to show you what we've got cooking for Infinite Legions, and very excited to be able to share All-Star 6 with you tonight. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Take it slow. I will talk to you all very soon. Good night, everybody.